There have been a lot of changes in the run-up to 10th edition. There's been a lot of stuff that's been axed. We've seen stuff move to Legends. We've seen things like the box knot go completely out of production from this point on, and I didn't expect them to make even more sweeping changes, especially not this change. That's right, all of these units are going to be placed into the Legends of the Horus Heresy, and that means that they are not eligible for competitive play. They're still good for matched and narrative, but they won't receive updated datasheets as we go through the edition. They will be put into Legends, and that's where they'll stay. And that is a big old list of stuff right there. The Leviathan, the Contemptor and Derideo, the Kratos, Sikaran, Spartan, Cerberus and Typhon tanks, certain varieties of the Land Raider, which is interesting wording, the Vindicator and the Whirlwind, Xiphon Interceptors, Fire Raptors, Storm Eagles and Stormbirds, Legion support weapons, Fellblades, Falchions, Mastodons, Javelins, Dreadnoughts, and Deathstorm drop pods, and even the Admech and Chaos do not escape unscathed from this, because the Secretary Hoplites and Peltasts and the Terax Pattern Termites are gone, along with Decimators, Greater Blight Drones, Blood Slaughterers, Greater Brass Scorpions, Khitan Ravagers, that one really got me, the Charybdis Assault Claw and the Dreadclaw Drop Pod. Now, it's not absolutely everything from the Horus Heresy, because Adeptus Custodes units and Imperial Knights are still going to be supported. One of the reasons that they used for the Imperial Knights being still supported is, well, you know, it's Night Worlds, they keep these things going, they are ancient tech, but they're also very well maintained and still fight to this day, so to speak. But they also specifically call out the plastic Knight Cerastus as something that's going to be available to both Loyal and Chaos Knights alike, which is an interesting thing to draw attention to, because there's also plastic Contemptors and Leviathans now, but those were not spared the axe. They also point out that the Custodies are another exception. I mean, if they cut the Horus Heresy stuff out of the Custodies side of 40k, then that range will go back to having 4 models, so that's definitely a good thing they've done there. On Chaos players, don't worry, it's not just bad news, there is good news as well. You know that Kratos that we've been eyeing all this time, and wondered exactly when and how we might gain access to it? Well, you're in luck. They're doing a datasheet for the Kratos for Chaos! Just in time for you to not be able to use it in competitive. Yeah! Now, I'm not a competitive player, so this doesn't make a huge difference in terms of how I play the game, but it did surprise me seeing this, and I'm trying to work out how best to condense and organise the multiple different thoughts I had whilst reading this article. See, one facet of this is that this shows incredible self-awareness. Games Workshop, not me. I don't need self-awareness. I'm on YouTube. You don't need self-awareness for that. You need to ignore yourself as much as possible. So, Games Workshop are acknowledging here that Space Marines do have a slight issue with how many units they have available and how much of a pain that is to balance. And they already kind of tackled that partially by shifting loads of other stuff into Legends, but even with taking all of this stuff out, Space Marines still have a lot of stuff to choose from. They are not like bereft of options suddenly. It's not like they have nothing to choose from and what are we going to do? There's still loads of stuff, loads and loads of it. In fact, when I checked the site before, they still have like 90 something options in the 40k section, and I didn't spot the Leviathan or Contemptor in there, whereas Chaos have like 49, I believe it is, which also begs the question, if it's partially an ease of balancing and reducing bloat thing, why are Chaos losing stuff when they don't have as much of a problem? Let's not get into that. So, on the one hand, there's self-awareness there. Games Workshop have said it's very difficult to balance all of this. They have loads of options. They are swimming in options. Therefore, we need to cut some stuff out. That bit I totally get. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong at all. When you look at how many options Space Marines have compared to every other faction, it is mad. Especially when you look at, like, say, Adeptus Custodes next to them, where they don't really have... That's not fair. I was going to say they don't have anything. They've got, like, 5 kits. 5 kits? 6 kits? I might be 6, you know. I'm not counting the ones that just are, like, a Land Raider. That's not them specific. That's just a general Imperium kit at this point. Come at me, I don't care. Slimming down the range is good, and making it easier to build lists and more simple for them to balance is also good, because it will make competitive technically, maybe, hopefully, if they do it right, better, in theory. What surprises me about this is the fact that they have chosen quite a few things that have had plastic kits really not that long ago. Like, these are new kits, these are new entries into their catalogue. They are things that 40k players and Horus Heresy players can buy for use in both systems. Now, of course, you can still use them in both systems, but by cutting out the competitive side of things, I don't know, I feel like there's got to be stuff in the Space Marine range that they could have cut out to make space for some of the Horus Heresy stuff. Some of the stuff that they're trying to make more relevant as a whole. If you just designed a new product, and if you just released something in plastic that previously was like prohibitively expensive and only available from one place, and now you've got something that is available from all places and is like front of house, like front of the shelves, people can see them all the time, why would you not want that to be as widely used as possible? Because you're cutting out it being as widely used as possible by saying to the competitive crowd, you can't use that in your game anymore. Like, that surprised me, because it feels like you'd want those kits to have as much attention and as much use as possible, because you've made them and they're new and they've had a load of attention and they have done very well and people have clamoured for more. And would you not want to try and support that and make it so that more people were able to use them in their chosen way of playing? Like, I feel like there's got to be stuff in the Space Marine range that could have been sacked off to make space for it. Like, is anyone buying scout bikes anymore? Is anyone buying those? I know from saying that immediately, there are going to be at least two of you furiously typing in the comments that yes, you do still buy scout bikes. And you know what? Fair dues. Fair dues. I support you and your love of ancient miniatures. You go for it. You absolutely, I can tell you're loving it, and that's fine. But really though, why do we still have Space Marine bikes and Primaris bikes and the attack bike and the Mario Kart? Why do we have all of those? Why aren't they just sacked off the older ones? Now, of course, you're going to say, yeah, but if you keep Contemptors, Leviathans and Redemptors and whatever the Ballistaris and Brutalis Dreadnoughts and all of that, if you keep all of those, aren't you just doubling up on Dreadnoughts just the same way that they're doubling up on bikes? And the answer to that is, yes, you would be doubling up, unquestionably. However, the difference is that the Dreadnoughts are new. Like, the Redemptor is relatively new. It's not new, but it's in the grand scheme of Games Workshop, relatively new. The Brutalis and the Ballistaris, also new. The Contemptor and the Leviathan, also new. The Space Marine bikes and the attack bike, old as hell. Really, really old. And there are just newer, bulkier, better looking versions of those now. That's a very subjective opinion. Ignore that bit. They're not necessarily better looking. Depends on your personal taste. But you get what I mean. Of all the things to sack off and to just get rid of in terms of competitive playing 40k, them choosing the stuff that is newer is just surprising to me. You know, having just talked through, like, well, why have they chosen the Heresy stuff? Why have they chosen this stuff that's brand new, that they've only just made, that has been received really well? Why are they cutting down the number of people who would be attracted to buy that, depending on the systems they play and so on? I've kind of answered the question, really, haven't I? Or at least I think I might have done. It's because they are Horus Heresy. It's because they are branded the Horus Heresy. And if you get someone new in, and they go, okay, I want to build a Space Marine army, and someone goes, okay, what you really want is a couple of these Dreadnoughts, they're going to go, okay, cool, I need a couple of these Dreadnoughts. Then they can find a box that says the Horus Heresy on it instead of 40k, and they're going to be confused. Or at least there's a good chance that that's what Games Workshop thinks would happen. And to be fair, I'm not sure I would totally disagree with that if that's what they did think, because when it comes to starting a new game, a new system, especially something as big, as expansive, as old as 40k, like, they are selling sculpts that are 2 years old to people who are younger than some of the sculpts that they still sell alongside that 2-year-old sculpt. This is not a game where it's just sprung up overnight and no one's heard of it. There is a massive backlog to get through in terms of learning all the things, and I suppose actually adding in brand confusion as well. I mean, they could also box them so that they say 40k, not Horus Heresy, but then that confuses people getting into the Horus Heresy for the first time if they assume that people are trying to get into that as opposed to 40k. If they want to keep every single system distinct and different, then that makes the most sense. From a branding standpoint, it makes the most sense. The problem is that it doesn't make sense to people who already play. It doesn't make sense to people who are already invested. To people who already play any number of these games, the fact that you can take your Warcry warband and use them in Age of Sigmar because it's the same universe but it's slightly different, but actually the units are the same and you can use them in either, that's fine for us because we're already in the ecosystem. We know what the deal is. There's a lot of paths crossing. But if you're just starting out and someone says you want this, oh, and you want this Contemptor Dreadnought as well, then you're going to have to try and find the Contemptor Dreadnought that is not part of the same system, and it's not immediately clear that it's available for 40k. But then again, couldn't you just put a label on the box that says Warhammer 40k compatible? That would also work. Maybe they should have just done that. I don't know. Anyway, this is exceptionally rambly and we need to call it to an end because otherwise we'll be here for the next half an hour. I don't know that we'll necessarily get anywhere in the process. So, I'm sorry. Those of you who love a bit of competitive play, who have been stomping around cheerfully using your Leviathans, Contemptors, Mastodons even, they're gone. And I'm afraid, along with the box nut, all we can do is bow your head, give it a rip, and just say goodbye. For now. They might change it in the future, who knows. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news once again. At the very least, I hope some of this was not terrible. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that stuff. Click if you like, don't click if you don't want to. And as always, there's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use for the channel if you like. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.